Hello, and this is my video for the code review. In this assignment, I reviewed two GitHub projects, one called TextProcessing 1 and the other TextProcessing. Both of the programs are made to read a text file, remove punctuation, turn everything to lowercase, count how often each word appears, as well as showing how many unique words there are. Now I'll go through each project and what I found in them, then I'll compare them both at the end. Firstly, I looked at TextProcessing 1 project. As you can see in the code review, I did it under the main headings for the assignment. For naming, the variable names are very short and gave no indication for what they were used for. For example, Z, Q, and A. Some suggestions for better names would be file path for Z and length for Q, etc. The code structure, all the code was written inside the main branch, which works but make it hard to work with. I suggest the code should be broken down into smaller methods. For error handling, there isn't really any. For example, if the file doesn't exist, the program will crash. There also isn't any validation for user input. So some suggestions, there needs to be a check if the file exists, and a try-catch block can handle those errors. For file assumptions, the program assumes the file is readable, exists, and is plain text, so there needs to be a method to handle empty or unreadable files. For OOP principles, the program is fully procedural and doesn't use any class or methods besides main. Therefore, adding a class or methods can help. The output is alright but not well designed. Things like the unique with a Z on the end are confusing, so changing the formatting and changing that word to unique words is clearer and easier to understand. The program logic, the code works, but it would be cleaner to split into small parts. Next, I looked at TextProcessing, and as you can see, the code review is in the same layout as the previous one. So for naming, this one does use clear variable names, such as file path, which makes it easy to follow. The code structure is entirely within main, which does work, but it would be better to split it into separate methods. For error handling, the program checks if the file exists before reading, which is good, but it doesn't check if it is empty. For file assumption, the program assumes the file is small and plain text. For OOP principles, the code is procedural and all within the main, so could do with more classes and methods. The output is clear and simple, but could still be made more presentable and user-friendly. Lastly, the program logic does function, but can't handle contraction words such as don't properly, so the rejects could be made smarter. Now for the comparison. Clarity-wise, TextProcessing is clearer than TextProcessing 1 because of the better variable names. For maintainability, they are similar because they both put everything in main. TextProcessing does handle errors better as it checks if the file exists, whereas TextProcessing 1 doesn't check anything and will just crash if anything goes wrong. Neither project uses classes or OOP principles. And for functionality, the projects both do function but don't cover all irregularities. And TextProcessing follows better programming practices like naming than TextProcessing 1. Overall, TextProcessing is better than TextProcessing 1, but both need improvements, like improvements in error handling and splitting code up into small methods. This is the end of my code review. Thanks for watching.